Hello and welcome back to Heart and Soul's Yoga Life channel. Today I want to discuss with you why we suffer and how to get yourself out of this intense and emotional state. If your heart has been broken, or if you are in pain because of grief, of a loss, of shame, of guilt, or anything that lies in the past and that you can't fix because you can't go back in time, then you know what it's like to really have a hard time to let go. I remember when I was in my 20s, at some point I was in love and I thought I had found the one. And then only a couple of months later, the relationship broke off. And for a year, I would suffer day after day after day, in tears, crying myself to sleep, hoping he would come back to me, which never happened. 13 years later, I got divorced. Different guy, same story. Obviously, the stakes were much higher. I had a child at the time. I was living in a different country, and it was much more challenging from a practical point of view. Yet the suffering was much, much less, because in my heart and my mind, I knew that it was the right time to move on and that it would be better for both of us. So interestingly enough, the scenes, the settings, the things that were happening were pretty similar. And at the same time, in one case, there was such intense suffering and such intense heartache, whereas the other one was actually challenging and difficult, but possible to move through emotionally. So I'm illustrating, or I'm sharing this story to illustrate that it is not so much what happens to us that holds the tremendous suffering, but it is the meaning that we attach to what is happening, and that sense that we wish we could change something. If only we had done something different, maybe things would have panned out differently. So the suffering lies not so much in the event itself, but in the disparity, in the gap between the actual things that are happening and the expectations we had, the desires we had, what should have happened. And in that gap, it is where we can't let go, where we are having such difficulty adjusting. So what I would like to discuss with you today are a couple of strategies, a couple of ways that you can employ to help yourself get out of the intensity of the suffering. However, what I want to share with you first is that in general, life is based on duality. There is always good and bad. There is dark and light. There is sad and there is happy. Everything in this physical life that we are living right now is based on duality. And if the darkness wasn't there, if things weren't sometimes difficult, dark, if life wasn't ending and at some point we would lose even the people we love the most, it wouldn't be as precious and we wouldn't appreciate the light and the good times as much. So first and foremost, we need to see that duality is a fact of life and that suffering and loss is a fact of life, but it is optional how we deal with it. So the real step up that we all need to take, and we all have our different journeys in this, is to learn how to be equipoised and be at peace and calm in the ups and in the downs of life. So this is, from a spiritual perspective, the journey that ultimately we all are on. Just some of it find it harder, some of it find it easier. And depending on how advanced we are in, say, spiritual practices, we will have a harder or easier time to let go. Also, obviously, depending on what's happening for us. Some things are easier to let go than others. Okay, so let's look at the strategies we can employ to get out of the emotion of suffering and see whatever is happening to you in a more peaceful and equipoised way. The first idea I have for you is probably a little bit counterintuitive, because I just say how to get out of suffering. The first advice I have is to actually sit with the feeling. And this can be the hardest thing sometimes. As a general rule, we are trying to avoid feeling whatever is going on. Some of us will drown our sorrows in alcohol. Some others will use drugs. Some people will go out and party hard or find themselves a new lover. And some people will binge watch on Netflix for days, weeks, or months. So whatever you have been doing, the lesson here is to learn to sit with yourself, almost to reparent yourself. Be there for yourself like a good mother or a good father would be, without judgment, without expectations, without needing to rush anything, just being present with the feeling itself and with whatever it is that is coming up. when you do this, take your time, find a private space that feels safe to you, and actually close your eyes and feel into the feeling. Locate it in your body and be really present with whatever arises. The beauty of that is that you are allowing it rather than resisting it. And often what perpetuates this feeling is trying to resist it and then become fearful of having to feel it again. So be present with it in the moment, and you will find that often within a minute or two, the intensity of the feeling will subside and it will actually go away. So then you can move on and do whatever you need to do to take progressive steps towards solving the situation if there is a solution to it. Secondly, I would like to invite you to see the bigger picture. Right now you might feel like you are in a really dark tunnel and you can't even see the light on the other side. When you're suffering, it's just a really dark place to be. However, in the bigger picture of your life, you will find that this is only a short period. And often if you look back and employ hindsight, you will remember moments where something got taken away, got cut out, or was lost. And in hindsight, you can see how that actually was good for you. I can certainly say this about my marriage. Whilst it was hard when it broke up, it opened up a whole new range of possibilities and options for me that would never have been possible if that hardship hadn't happened in the first place. And I trust that if you look back in your own life, you can see multiple occasions where something that hurt in the moment, in hindsight, proved to actually be a fantastic opportunity and something that opened up space for something much better to come through. So allow yourself to feel into that as well. In much the same way, I would like you to also notice how the suffering happens because you are focusing on the past and you are focusing on something that you can't change. Most likely you are running over a situation, asking yourself something like, if only I could change what I said, if only somebody else had acted in a different way, if only I hadn't left at that point in time and had taken the opportunity to have another discussion, if only. Now, you are in a feedback loop here and over and over and over, hurting yourself by something that just simply can't be changed. The focus at this point needs to shift towards what is in your control and what can be done right now. And ideally the focus goes towards the future and what you want instead. I have said it in different videos before, and I want to employ the same metaphor here. It's almost like you're using a GPS system. Any GPS system to be able in your car to take you from one point to the next needs two coordinates. Where are you right now? And obviously you're clearly aware of that and why you don't want to stay there. And where do you want to go instead? So if now you have an intense heartache, for example, and somebody might have cheated on you, what is it? What kind of relationship is it that you want instead? One that's respectful, one that is loving, one that is truly appreciating all of who you are and all that you give or have to give to another person, etc., etc. So rather than keeping your focus on what it is that you don't want and that you don't have anymore, what is it that you do want to have instead? That focus will then gradually allow you to come back into action and move towards what it is that you want in your life. Once you see the light at the end of the tunnel, that light itself will allow you to be inspired again and to take steps to get towards where you want to be. Once you're on that journey, it is just a very different energy that you have in moving forward. So that will allow you to take steps bit by bit. And the further you go, the lighter your steps will be again. So that's my third piece of advice. Shift your focus to what it is that you do want instead. Now, in some cases, you will find that it's a blessing in disguise to have made this change. As a metaphor here, you can think of pruning. You know how sometimes at certain times of the year, we will cut back, say, roses, we will cut back other plants and prune them back. We don't do that to hurt the plants. We do that to trim offshoots that will otherwise cost additional energy that can be used better to strengthen the core of the plant, the heart of the plant. And just like we are doing this with our plants to ultimately make them stronger and more beautiful, in some situations, and again, this doesn't apply to every one of you and not to every type of suffering, but in some situations it might be energetically a pruning back. So if that's the case for you, what is it that does get strengthened by cutting off an offshoot that was probably not as good for you? What is it, again, that you want most? What is it that you are learning? Who is it that you are becoming by moving through the suffering and emerging stronger on the other side? The truth is that most strengths we have and most spurts of growth that we experience don't come from joy and fun and happiness. Most of them arise during time of hardship, during time of challenge, during times of suffering. In hindsight, again, who you are right now, you will be able to see a lot of the good qualities that you have come out of challenges, have come out of overcoming difficulties in your life. So if in that way you could see the current hardship that you're experiencing as a journey of growth, what is it that you want to strengthen in yourself? Who do you want to become in the process? Even further, if this was the end of a chapter in the book that is your life, and you are now turning the page, starting a new chapter, what do you want the headline of this chapter to be? What do you want it to be all about? And if you are the hero or the heroine in your own book of life, who is it that you want to be, and who is it that you want to become? Those kind of questions will serve you to take your mind off the hardship, off the suffering, off the gap, and into the life that you truly want to live. So I can only encourage you to consciously work with your focus, consciously work into the shift that you want to experience, and therefore, almost like we're saying, when life hands you a lemon, squeeze it and make tequila, right? Find whatever value there is in the difficulty you're experiencing, and then hopefully emerge on the other side stronger and even more of who you truly are. Thank you very much for watching. I will leave a couple of journaling questions at the bottom of this video, a couple of prompts that might help you to do more work by yourself in your own time. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down in the comments. And if you like our content, you can subscribe to our channel and, of course, ring the bell button if you like. That will allow you to get updates when we are releasing our next piece of content. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again soon.